Hey folks, tonight we're diving into the wildlife and epic journey of Miyamoto Musashi, that legendary Japanese swordsman, artist, and philosopher with a fearless streak that basically rewrote samurai rules. From undefeated duels to brainy wisdom etched in the Book of Five Rings, Musashi's legacy whispers to us through the centuries, inspiring both sword-slinging warriors and deep thinkers alike. So before you get comfy, do me a solid, like the video and subscribe, but only if you're actually into what I'm cooking here. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's always cool to see folks tuning in from all corners of the globe. Now, dim those lights, turn on the fan for some white noise, and let's enjoy tonight's ride together. Your story kicks off in 1584, a time historians politely dub Japan's complicated period. But honestly, if you were a newborn, you'd just call it a total mess. The Sengoku period wasn't about polite tea ceremonies. Nope. It was more like a brutal game of who can stab you in the back faster, march quicker, and build the biggest castle. Basically, the medieval Japanese version of a cutthroat real estate market. Except here, lose the auction, lose your life. You were born in a tiny village called Miyamoto, tucked in the rugged hills of Harima province. Your family wasn't rolling in dough, no fancy silk diapers for you. Chances are you were swaddled in rough farmer cloth and handed a wooden spoon just to keep the chill off. Congrats. Life handed you your first weapon the moment you popped out. Your dad, Shinmin Musashi, was a pro swordsman. And when I say pro, I mean the guy took blade art very seriously. He was a tough dude, a strict teacher, and definitely not the let's toss a ball around kind of dad. Nope. His idea of bonding was here's a wooden sword. Musashi, try not to cry when you fall. Warm fuzzies rare. Praise even rarer. Hugs forget about it. But hey, in a ruthless, no mercy world, being soft was a quick ticket to an early grave. Your dad wasn't raising a kid. He was forging a weapon. From the get-go, you had a wild streak. You weren't a neat, obedient kid who bowed politely and memorized poetry. Nope. You were a sassy, stubborn little mess, probably smelling like dirt most of the time. While other kids played tag, you were likely plotting ambushes behind trees, declaring victory, subtle foreshadowing for your future career. Basically, from the moment you blinked under Japan's blazing sun, your fate whispered in your ear. You weren't meant for a peaceful, quiet life. You were born to fight, to roam, and to carve your name into history, one messy gem at a time. And given the state of the country, you were about to get a lot of practice. Your playground wasn't some grassy lawn or cozy backyard. It was the hard earth of Miyamoto Village, smelling of smoke, steel, and horse sweat. Forget lullabies and fairy tales. Your bedtime stories were about heroic samurai splitting enemies in half with a single swing. Your crib toys, probably just a few rusty swords hanging from the ceiling. From the moment you could toddle, or more like stagger, like a tiny drunken warrior, your dad Musashi had you gripping swords for practice. While other kids learned simple kanji, you learned how to block a killer blow. Call it an unconventional education. No participation trophies in your house. Lose a spar, No cookies for you. You'd get bruised and a lecture on why hesitation equals death. Munasai was a hard man. It probably always smelled like a swamp. While other kids were playing tag, you were likely plotting an ambush, hiding behind a tree, declaring victory, a subtle hint about your future career. Long story short, right from the moment you blinked under Japan's blazing sun, fate whispered in your ear. You weren't born for a quiet, peaceful life. You were born to fight, to roam, and to carve your name into history, one slightly messy gem at a time. And judging by the state of the country, you're about to get plenty of practice. Your playground isn't some cozy backyard or a grassy field. It's the hard earth of Miyamoto Village, where the wind smells like smoke, steel, and horse sweat. Forget lullabies and fairy tales. Your bedtime stories are about heroic samurai splitting enemies in half with a single swing. Your cradle toys were probably just a few rusty swords hanging from the ceiling. From the moment you could walk, or rather stagger like a tiny drunken warrior, your dad, Munasai, had you swinging a sword in training, while other kids learned simple kanji. You were mastering how to block a killer blow. Call it an unconventional education. No. Participation trophies in your house? Lose a sparring match? No cookies for you. You'd get bruised and a lecture on why hesitation equals death. Munasai was a tough guy. Legend says he earned official jewels under the Ashikaga shogunate. But parenting wasn't exactly his strong suit. His love was sharp, practical, and delivered as subtly as a cannon blast. Compliments. Maybe once if you didn't faceplant after a heavy hit. Otherwise, zip it. Because in his mind, surviving was reward enough, yet something inside, you thrived under that pressure, while other boys dreamed of parties and fame. You dreamed of the rhythm of battle, of predicting your opponent's next move before they even made it. You didn't see the sword as just a weapon. You saw it as a no pampering here, no comforting hugs. Instead, you're forged day after day, like a blade scraping against wet stone. Even as a kid, you start to get the harsh truth of the world. Winning isn't about being stronger. It's about being smarter, faster, and just a bit more ruthless than the guy across from you. The villagers whisper about you, the wild boy, with eyes sharper than his years. The kid who never cries when bleeding. Some shake their heads, some nod in respect. But one thing's clear, as you edge into your teens, you're already something different. Not just a boy, but something way more dangerous growing inside you. It happens when you're 13. That awkward age most kids are busy trying to catch fish or maybe survive a spelling bee. But you're gearing up for a legally sanctioned murder. Welcome to feudal Japan, where puberty comes with sword fights. A traveling samurai named Arma Kihei rolls into town. He's from a local dojo and arrogant enough to think some village kid wouldn't dare challenge him. Big mistake. Rumors spread fast. Musashi's about to face a real samurai. Villagers gather, whisper, and quietly place bets. Even your family looks at you like a chicken walking into a fox den. They expect a massacre. They expect you flat on the ground, bleeding, humiliated. But here's the thing you don't want to lose. You're 13, angry at the world, swinging a wooden sword that still smells like fresh cut wood. Not exactly the stuff of heroic legends. Yet when the fight starts, Arma Kihei does what seasoned swordsmen do. He underestimates you. Maybe because of your size. Maybe because your face is still smeared with dirt from that morning. Big mistake number 2. No fancy bows or dramatic speeches. You charge like a lightning strike, raw and furious. You catch him off guard, crashing into him with all the grace of an avalanche. Before the villagers can even gasp, before Arma can collect himself, he's on the ground, groaning, bleeding, humiliated. A grown samurai defeated by a barefoot teen wielding a glorified stick. You don't just win. You announce to the world that Musashi is not a name to be ignored. It's a name to be feared. Of course. Your dad's reaction is complicated. Pride, maybe relief, definitely some fear because even Munasai can see it. The boy he's been molding is starting to outgrow even his brutal expectations. As for you, you just feel clarity. You were born for this, not to farm, not to bow and scrape, but to sword fight, to conquer, to rise. Your first blood has been shed, and somewhere deep in your young heart, you realize this won't be the last time. You think after your first shiny victory, life might settle down. Maybe a decent apprenticeship. Maybe a steady job fixing shoes or patching roofs. You know, something normal, not a shot at glory. At 15, you make a choice. Most adults wouldn't dare. You leave home, no tearful goodbyes, no packed lunches, just a sword, a tattered travel cloak, and a stubborn refusal to live anyone else's life but your own. You become a wanderer, a ronin, in a world where status is everything, where being tied to a lord means protection and purpose. You choose none of it. It's like showing up at a medieval job fair, flipping the table, and whistling your way into the forest. Why? Because deep down, you know if you tie yourself to someone else's house, follow someone else's rules, you'll never become a true warrior, source of protection and purpose. You didn't get a choice. It was like showing up at a medieval job fair, flipping the table, and whistling your way into the forest. Why? Because deep down, you knew that tying yourself to someone else's house and playing by their rules would never make you a true warrior. You didn't come here to play politics. You didn't come to polish armor and cheap sake for some fat lord. You came here to train your sword your way or not at all. Of course, wandering around isn't glamorous. You sleep under tree branches, not silk canopies. You eat whatever you find, usually rice if you're lucky, or bark if not. Your companions mostly crows, wild dogs, and occasionally a curious farm boy quietly asks, "Mom, why does that guy look like he hasn't showered in a year, but you don't care?" The wild becomes your dojo. Rivers sharpen your senses. The cold wind teaches patience better than any master, and with every mile you walk, you leave behind a bit of that boy you used to be. The muddy-footed country kid is gone. The ambitious teenager who aimed to beat a samurai's still there, but getting meaner. You start hunting dojos, challenging their best students to duels, learning from every strike, every miss, every win. Your skills improve so fast the world can't ignore you anymore. People start whispering your name on dusty, smoke-filled streets. There's a wild ronin out there. a guy with a sword sharper than most, men's brains, and somewhere along those endless roads, a new thought grows in you. Maybe the sword isn't just for killing. Maybe it's a path to something bigger than just survival. You just have to keep walking. If there's one thing that sets you apart from other samurai of your time, it's this. You look nothing like them. A typical samurai strides into town with slicked back hair, armor polished to a mirror shine, sword neatly sheathed like a badge of honor. Meanwhile, you roll in looking like you just wrestled a bear, and maybe you actually did. Hair wild, clothes torn and yellowed, sometimes missing half of them. Your feet are probably muddy, definitely calloused. You're not the polished image of an elite warrior. You're something rarer, something way more unsettling. You look less like a polite samurai and more like a wild wolf, learning to walk on two legs and somehow picking up a sword along the way. And people notice. Oh, they notice? At first, they laugh. Who could take you seriously? You look more suited to chasing chickens than facing veteran warriors. But the laughter turns to confusion, then fear, because once you draw your sword, once you move, all that grime, dirt, and wild energy morphs into something terrifyingly effective. No wasted moves, no hesitation, just pure, unfiltered violence with the grace of a predator. In duels, you don't dance around throwing fancy strikes just for show. You aim to finish it, fast, ugly, and final. It's not shameful, it's survival. It's knowing victory isn't about who looks the coolest swinging a sword. It's decided by who's left standing and breathing. Polite samurai still worry if their helmet is straight. You've been inside them, breaking their pride on the ground. Rumors swirl around you like autumn leaves. He fights like a demon. He's not fighting for points. He fights to survive. If you see him, run the other way. You become a living ghost story told from village to village, whispered by cheap gossip and around campfires. But you don't care about reputation. You don't even care about fame. You care about one thing getting better, sharper, deadlier, because deep down, you know the world isn't kind to wolves. Only the fiercest survive, with the open road as home and your sword as a pillow. You throw yourself into a new hobby, challenging strangers to deadly fights. Some people collect seashells. You collect victories, preferably before lunch. Simple strategy: walk into a new town, find the local dojo or the cockiest swordsman hanging around, challenge them to a duel, win, then move on. You're like a one-man natural disaster, leaving behind bruised egos and broken bones wherever you go. If Japan's Rural Tourism Board existed, they'd put up signs, beware, Ronin crossing wilderness. And the best part is, nobody knows how to deal with you. You're too unpredictable, too rough. You don't fight by the book. Mostly. Maybe he just never read the rule book from the start. No fancy armor for him. No bowing 6 times before drawing his sword. No polite wait for the opponent to compose a haiku before the first strike. Nope. He sizes them up instantly, finds the fastest route to victory, and grabs it. Brutal, efficient, and 0 regrets. Sometimes he used a real sword, sometimes just a wooden stick. Legend says once he knocked a guy out cold with some random sword he found lying around, because for him, it wasn't about the weapon, but the mind behind it, and his mind was as sharp as a katana blade and twice as dangerous. With every gem he learned, not just about technique, but about people, how they channel their fear through trembling hands, how they widen their eyes just before the attack. Pride always makes them predictable. You're not just fighting the body, you're breaking the spirit. By the end of your teens, your win tally looks ridiculous. More victories than birthdays, more injured opponents than bottles of sake. You don't stick around to enjoy the fame. No award ceremonies, no parades. You just nod once, maybe mumble something profound like H, then head to the next dusty road, the next opponent, the next lesson, because somewhere deep down, you know you're not forging jewelry for cash or even survival anymore. You're forging it because it's shaping you into something unstoppable, something even you are only just starting to glimpse. By the end of your teens, you've got a little fame somewhere between a terrifying sword prodigy and a slightly scary guy who might eat nails for breakfast. What really makes you stand out isn't just the fighting record, but your refusal to do what everyone expects. You don't swear loyalty to any lord. You don't tie yourself to a dojo or a war band. You're proud and stubborn as a ronin, a masterless samurai, in a culture where who you serve is almost more important than yourself. That's basically like showing up at a royal party covered in mud and challenging the host to an arm wrestling match. The respected samurai look at you like you're a walking disaster. No master, no patron, no fixed address. Surely this guy's crazy. But here's the thing they don't get. Freedom is your sharpest sword. No master to impress. You only answer to yourself. No political games. You spend your energy honing skills instead of polishing someone else's shoes. No castle to defend. You carry your whole life on your back. Light, nimble, ready. Yeah, life's tough. No shiny armor for you. No fancy tea ceremonies where noble ladies giggle behind silk fans. You don't even get a reliable dinner most nights. One memorable week you survive purely on stolen radishes and suspicious river fish. But what you get is priceless. The ability to evolve, adapt, and grow beyond the stiff limits of tradition wherever you go. Lords and generals try to recruit you. Some offer gold, others fine horses, land, silk kimonos. Some even offer daughters. Honestly, with your wild looks and campfire smell, it's unclear if those offers are serious or just hopeful. And each time you bow your head and refuse because your path isn't paved in gold, it's paved with blood, sweat, and quiet discoveries. You're not here to be anyone's servant. You're here to master something bigger, the art of war, the art of strategy, and maybe the art of mastering yourself. You are Miyamoto Musashi, no master, no fear, and just getting started, somewhere between the 100th gem and the 1,000th mosquito bite, sleeping under the stars. Something's changing inside you. Fighting isn't just about strength, not just speed. It's seeing the world in a whole new way. You start realizing the sword is only the surface. Beneath every clang of steel is a battle of minds, a silent conversation in dizziness, pressure, rhythm, and fear. Victory doesn't belong on your thousandth mosquito bite, sleeping under the stars. Something inside you starts to change. Fighting isn't just about strength, not just speed. It's about seeing the world differently. You begin to realize the sword is just the surface. Beneath every clang of steel is a mental battle, a silent conversation in dizziness, pressure, rhythm, and fear. Victory doesn't belong to the fastest or even the strongest. It belongs to the one who understands best. So, you start thinking differently. When you approach an opponent, you don't just study their stance or sword. You study them, how they tense their shoulders, how they blink when nervous, how they hesitate when dust blows in their face. You start predicting moves before they happen. Not magic, just ruthless attention to detail. You realize a duel's fate is sealed long before the first sword swings. It's decided the moment the opponent doubts themselves. It's decided the moment they feel like prey, and you're the storm rolling in. In many ways, you stop fighting altogether. You start fighting their intentions. This is when you truly separate yourself from the rest of the samurai world. While others memorize dusty old techniques and polish ancient sword moves, you're inventing something fresh, something ridiculously effective. You turn dueling into a chess match played at lightning speed. Sometimes you win before your opponent even realizes the fight started. A subtle shift in your stance, a smile, a genuine smile, or something so unnervingly close it scares the hell out of them. A surprise move that breaks every rule about style and tradition. And then they fall, confused and defeated, not because your strikes were stronger, but because you were a move ahead, a move they never saw coming. You start seeing life this way. Everything's strategy, everything's timing, everything's a balance of stillness and sudden ruthless action. The sword's just a tool. The real weapon is the mind. And your mind, sharpened by hardship, hunger, and endless battles, is becoming as dangerous as any blade you've ever wielded. Somewhere on endless roads you've walked, battered, bruised, and slightly more mosquito bitten than any legendary warrior would admit. You realize something else. Why settle for one sword when you can wield two? Yep. 2 hands, 2 swords. A revolutionary idea that every proper samurai in their fancy castles would scoff at while primping their stiff, ultra-traditional armor. But you don't have time to worry about tradition. You worry about survival. You worry about winning. So, you start training non-stop. One hand grips a katana, the other a wakizashi. The shorter sword, most brains short-circuit just thinking about it. But how do you block and attack at the same time? Not through schools, styles, or kata. Meanwhile, you're out in the woods, smashing tree trunks to bits, learning to move both hands independently, fluid as water, unpredictable as a summer storm. At first, you're clumsy. You drop your swords. You trip over your own feet. In one memorable moment, you almost disarm yourself. But slowly, painfully, something clicks. 2 swords aren't chaos. they're a deadly dance. One hand defends, the other attacks. Left, right, left. A rhythm as natural as breathing. You're no longer shackled by the rigid patterns taught in dojos. You create your own rhythm, your own style, and soon enough, your two-sword technique, Niten Ichi-ryu, becomes part of you like a heartbeat. The beauty of it leaves everyone clueless on how to fight you. Niten Ichi-ryu becomes part of you like a heartbeat. Its beauty leaves everyone clueless on how to fight you. Single-sword duelists get confused. Spear warriors get frustrated. Archers don't even get a chance to be frustrated. Your enemies prepare for one threat, but get hit with two. They expect a sword fight, but get overwhelmed by a storm. The more proper samurai shake their heads in disgust, muttering about centuries-old tradition being disrespected. But you don't hear them. You're too busy surviving, winning, innovating. You're not fighting for style points. You fight to carve out a new path in a dying, stiff world, a path where adaptability, not lineage, is the true mark of mastery. Two swords, one purpose victory, and you're just getting started. Now, you've built a reputation. You're the storm sweeping through town, crushing the local champ, and disappearing before anyone can carve your name into a wooden plaque. But storms need bigger mountains to clash with. Enter the Yoshio school. The Yoshio clan isn't some scrappy village dojo. They're elite warriors. They were a big deal. Their name carried weight in Kyoto, Japan's cultural hotspot, a city drowning in silk cloaks, meticulously groomed beards, and egos bigger than tiny mountains. The Yoshio clan didn't just teach sword fighting. They were practically a whole organization. Beating them was like a scrappy garage band crashing a royal opera and stealing the show, which, honestly, sounds exactly like something you'd do. So you stroll into Kyoto, dusty, a bit messy, maybe smelling a bit like river water and stubbornness, and throw down a challenge to Yoshio Seiro, the headmaster. Seiro, a proud guy who was basically a wild man courting death. Accepted. The battle was on. Protocols set. Everyone expected this to be a quick, humiliating lesson for you, a public reminder that true warriors don't lose to wild ronin, everyone but you. That is, when the fight started, no fancy speeches, no dramatic poses, just you, calm as a rock in the middle of a river, facing the swordmaster of the elite. And when the moment came, you didn't hesitate. You smashed through his defenses like a storm tearing through a paper screen. Seiro got crushed, not politely, not ceremoniously brutally. The proud Yoshio master was humiliated in front of his students, regulars, and half of Kyoto's gossip crowd. And you didn't hang around to gloat. You can't just walk the streets and expect applause. You nod once, maybe tighten your ragged cloak against the wind, and vanish into the city's dark alleys. Because in your head, the war isn't over. Only the next fight, the next challenge. You broke the foundation of an empire, but guess what? Yoshio isn't about to let that humiliation slide. No way blood won't be spilled, and you're ready. The Yoshio school doesn't tolerate shame, losing to some wild ronin, a man who probably sleeps closer to goats than gold's roar. isn't just a bruise to their pride, it's a full body trauma. So naturally, they do what any self respecting group with hurt egos does. They send in the next brother. Yoshio De Niro steps up. You could say De Niro is Seuro's bigger, angrier sequel, more muscle, more rage, less patience. He throws down an official challenge, dead set on wiping away the family's shame, preferably by erasing you from existence. The city buzzes with expectation. Another Musashi showdown. Will the wild swordsman finally meet his match? Will honor be restored? Can someone please pass the sake? But you're calm as always. If De Niro thinks rage will win this fight, he's clearly not paying attention. The duel day arrives. The crowd gathers. Bets placed. Street vendors hawk grilled fish skewers to hyped up spectators. Because what goes better with a life or death battle than a snack? When De Niro steps into the arena, he looks like a storm cloud shaped like a man, armed, armored, and furious. You look pretty much like usual. Old sandals, simple clothes. Your eyes say, I've got 3 ways to end this, and 2 of them are downright insulting. The duel begins. De Niro charges hard and fast, aiming to crush you with brute force, but you, light, quick, strategic, step out of his range, reading his moves like a half-finished play. After a few exchanges, it's over. You land a devastating strike. De Niro collapses. The last hope of Yoshio blows away like smoke. The crowd is stunned again. Some gasp, some cheer, some instantly rethink their life choices. The once mighty Yoshio clan has lost 2 sons to a scruffy barefoot fighter who probably sharpened his sword on a rock that morning. And it's clear he's not paying attention to this fight. The duel day has arrived. The crowd gathers. Bets are placed. Street vendors sell grilled fish skewers to hyped up spectators because nothing pairs better with a life or death showdown than a snack. When De Niro steps into the arena, he looks like a human-shaped storm cloud, a human shape, decked out in weapons, armor, and pure rage. You still look pretty much the same as always. Worn-out slippers, simple clothes, your eyes say. I've laid out 3 ways to end this, and 2 of them are downright rude. The duel begins. De Niro charges like a wrecking ball, hell-bent on smashing you with brute force. But you, smooth, nimble, strategic, you slip out of range, reading his moves like a badly written play. After a few exchanges, it's over. You land a knockout blow. De Niro goes down hard. Yoshio's last shred of hope vanishes into thin air. The crowd goes silent once again. Some gasp for air, others cheer. A few immediately reconsider their life choices. The once mighty Yoshio clan just lost 2 sons to a scruffy barefoot fighter who probably sharpened his sword on a rock that very morning. And you don't give a victory speech or brag. You just turn and walk away, silent, calm, like some natural force that needs no explanation. But deep down, you know the Yoshio clan isn't done yet. They've got one last desperate move, and it's not going to win any points for honor, overcoming pain, a humiliating public defeat. Yeah, that feeling's like pouring sake into an open wound, and after losing not 1, but 2 heirs to your sword, the Yoshio school once so proud, now teeters on the brink of collapse. They've got a choice: accept, ambush, try harder. Even trained warrior squads can barely touch you. You've reached a level where facing yourself, defeat gracefully, or toss whatever honor they had left into the fire and bet everything on. One last desperate move. Guess which option they picked? Yoshio called for another duel, but this time it wasn't a simple one-on-one fight. Oh no, they were planning an ambush. To target you, wipe that smug grin off your face, and reclaim your honor with a flurry of blades. Their strategy was simple: lure you into a final showdown with Madashiro, the young new head of their clan, a kid not even old enough to shave, charging forward like a puppet, while dozens of armed Yoshio warriors hid nearby, ready to strike the moment you showed up. A fair fight, not a chance. But fairness left the conversation long ago for these two dead brothers. Now, here's what you're dealing with. Yeah, you guessed it, a trap. You can smell the rotten fish from a mile away. So what do? You have to get there early, before the ambush is fully set, before the hidden swordsmen take their positions, before anyone's waiting for you. You slip through the twilight mist like a ghost. The sword's drawn. Madashiro barely has time to scream before you slice him down. A quick, clean strike, lightning fast. Chaos erupts. The Yoshio men swarm out of the shadows like angry ants. Dozens of them, swords flashing, yelling, cursing your name. And you don't freeze, you don't flinch, you move fast, precise, deadly vague. You slice through the ambush like a knife through rice paper, weaving through their ranks and disappearing into the dark before they can regroup. By the time they realize what just happened, you're long gone. A rumor spreads. The Yoshio school, once Kyoto's pride, has fallen in disgrace, and you don't stick around to celebrate. You just keep walking, because for Miyamoto Musashi, this journey wasn't about revenge. It was about perfection, and perfection demands more than just winning. It demands evolution. After you demolished the mighty Yoshio school, your legend exploded like fireworks over a dusty village square. Only instead of awe and respect, your name carried a fresh, new flavor: fear. You weren't just a dangerous swordsman anymore. You were something else, hard to define, even harder to face. News spread like wildfire across the provinces. Musashi wasn't just beating opponents, he was destroying entire families. One Musashi was worth a whole battalion. If you see a scruffy guy wielding two swords and smelling vaguely of river mud, run. And here's the crazy part. This wasn't even an exaggeration. By this point, it seemed an army might be a better match for you than lone swordsmen. One-on-one child's play. Ambushes step it up. Even trained warrior squads struggled to touch you. You'd reached a level where fighting yourself felt less like dueling a man and more like trying to wrestle a storm. Part skill, sure, his two-sword technique, strategy, and speed were unmatched. But the secret weapon was psychological warfare. Most guys were defeated before they even drew their swords. Hearing your name, they'd remember the stories. The kid who killed a grown samurai at 13. The drifter who crushed Yoshio like twigs. The drifter, who'd use anything a log, a random branch, maybe a particularly pissed off goose if it helped him win. They'd step into the arena sweaty and full of doubt. And for you, doubt smelled sweeter. Isn't like fighting a man anymore. It's more like trying to battle a storm. Part skill, sure, your dual sword technique, strategy, and speed are unmatched. But your real secret weapon is psychological warfare. Most men lose before they even draw their sword. When they hear your name, they remember the stories. The kid who killed a full-grown samurai at 13. The drifter who smashed Yoshio like a twig. The drifter uses whatever's at hand, a log, a random branch, maybe an especially angry goose, if that's what it takes to win. They step into the arena, sweating and doubting. And to you, doubt smells sweeter than victory because you've learned something important. A sword can kill a body, but fear kills the soul. Sometimes you win a duel without swinging your sword at all. The opponent sees your cold, steady gaze, your slight head tilt-like. In my mind, you're already dead, and they collapse. Some surrender. Some run away. A few brave ones attack, but realize too late they're charging a natural force. You're no longer just Musashi of duality. You're Musashi the Storm. Musashi is unstoppable, and as you keep walking on, some ran away. A brave few charged in, only to realize way too late they just walked into a force of nature. You're not just Musashi, the duelist, anymore. You're Musashi, the storm, unstoppable Musashi. And as you keep trudging through Japan's bumpy backroads, one thing becomes crystal clear. It's gonna take more than numbers, more than swords, to stop you now when Yoshio falls and your rep skyrockets. You get what most warriors dream of: a rich lord to serve, a fancy title, maybe even a castle with decent plumbing. But nope, you pick that road again because deep down, you know castles are just cages, even if they're lined with gold. And so begins a long, winding, dusty chapter of your life, the wandering years. You drift province to province, like a blade caught in the wind. No plans, no map, just one constant chasing mastery. Wherever you land, you hunt new rivals, new styles, new ideas, sword masters, monks, spearmen, bandits. Doesn't matter who or what they are. If they know something you don't, you want to face them. Sometimes you challenge them. Sometimes they challenge you. Sometimes you bump into them accidentally while stealing a sweet rice ball and somehow stumble onto a gem. Life on the road is messy. Your style keeps shifting, like a river carving new paths through rock. You adapt, refine, ditch what doesn't work. You don't duel for money. You don't fight for fame. You fight for the thrill of becoming. Every rival is a mirror reflecting your flaws, and every time you shatter that mirror, you get sharper. Your clothes get rougher, your sword faster, your mind deadlier. People start spinning stories about you. Strange, mythical tales. Musashi fought 3 minute once with just a fan. Musashi defeated a spearmaster with a broken fishing pole. Musashi once stared down a bear until the bear apologized and walked off. Are they true? Maybe, maybe not. And you couldn't care less about correcting anyone. You're not interested in polishing your legend. You're here to sharpen your soul, and if that path takes you deeper into forests, across frozen rivers, over dusty mountain passes, then so be it. That path is now your home, your endless horizon, your companion, while other warriors tie their fate to lords and lineage. You tie yours only to the blade and the endless quest for something bigger than victory, something like real understanding, and you know you're getting closer as miles roll by and seasons blur. Something unexpected stirs deep inside your battle-hardened soul, a hunger for something greater. Not more bling, not more blood, not even more wins, but something quieter, something deeper, art. It starts subtly. After a long day of training or traveling, you find yourself holding a brush instead of a sword. At first, your calligraphy looks like a cat ran through wet ink. Not exactly museum quality, but like swordsmanship. You don't expect to be great right away. You want to get better through patience, discipline, and relentless practice. Soon enough, you're painting landscapes, hills, rivers, birds frozen mid-flight. The brush strokes almost mimic sword moves, fluid, precise, alive, and you realize something profound. The spirit guiding your blade can also guide your hand. Swordsmanship and art aren't opposites, they're twins. Both demand presence, both crave balance, both require seeing the world clearly and leaving a mark on it. Your brush strokes mimic sword movements, fluid, precise, alive, and you realize something deep. The spirit guiding your blade can also guide your hand. Swordsmanship and art aren't opposites, they're twins. Both demand presence, both crave balance, both require the ability to see the world clearly and leave a mark on it with grace and confidence. You don't just paint, you carve statues from wood. You practice tea ceremonies with the care of a general prepping for war. You study poetry, philosophy, Zen Buddhism. You become weird in a way, a Ronin who could kill 10 men before breakfast and paint a delicate cherry blossom ink painting by lunch. Your peers don't know what to make of that. Musashi, the guy who beat Yoshio, who fought Sasaki Kojiro, now painting. Some laugh, some mock. You don't care because you see something they don't. Victory is just temporary. Mastery is forever. A sword can win a battle. Art conquers immortality. And deep down, you get something even more important. One day, your body will weaken. Your sword hand will slow down. Jewels will run out. But your mind, spirit, and vision can live on through ink, through wood, through writing. You're not just a warrior anymore. You're becoming a creator, carving your spirit into the world, one perfect stroke at a time. And as you sit by the quiet river, brush in hand, a sly smile creeps across your face. This path is wider than you ever imagined, and it's only just beginning as you hit your 30s. With a parade of defeated rivals trailing behind like some epic victory march, a new name starts to buzz in your ear, Sasaki Kojiro. At first, just whispers in smoky, dusty streets. There's a man wielding a sword that looks like a lightning bolt. His sword is so long it could smack a bird out of the sky. He's undefeated, just like you. Intriguing. You're not the type to be swayed by hype. After all, You are the reputation that makes other warriors quake, but Kojiro's different. He's not some arrogant swordsman just begging to be humiliated. He's not a desperate noble's bodyguard clinging to old tricks. He's quick, deadly, precise, and carrying a ridiculously long sword, the Monohoshi Zo, the clothes-drying pole, making you wonder if he's compensating for something. You shouldn't say that out loud. Rude. Kojiro's swallow wing hairstyle is famous. It mimics the motions of bird wings. Fast, graceful, and unpredictable. He's not just skilled. He's a force of nature, a mirror reflecting you, but sleek, majestic, almost civilized, and strangely, you're excited. Finally, a real challenge, not some cocky braggart to embarrass, not a bunch of amateurs to outthink, but someone who can really push you to dig deeper, someone who can sharpen you like no gem ever could. Then you hear Kojiro has been appointed swordmaster to a lord. High honor, high pay, new robes. You're still crashing in the stables, occasionally using your travel cloak as a blanket and napkin. But it doesn't matter because you know your path, and Kojiro's aren't going to run parallel forever. They're destined to collide spectacularly. Rumors swirl around you like storm clouds gathering. Two undefeated swordsmen, two masters of timing and death, two legends, but only one fate. And somewhere inside, beneath the calm and calligraphy, the old fire sparks again. The wolf lifts its head. The sword vibrates with eager anticipation. You smile softly because you know what's coming and you're ready. This challenge isn't packaged in gold or fanfare. It's delivered with serious, quiet words through cautious messengers. Sasaki Kojiro has accepted. He will meet you on the battlefield. No politics, no lords, no armies, just two men, two swords, and a promise hanging in the damp air. The duel is set on a small rocky island in the Kanman Strait, Genryujima, far enough for privacy, flat enough for a fair fight, dramatic enough for the gods to pull up a chair. You hear the details with the calm you've held for years, while others pace nervously, sharpen their blades, and write tearful farewell letters. You barely shrug. Challenge accepted. Still, you prepare, but not the way your enemy expects. You don't spend nights polishing your armor. You don't compose. The duel is set on a tiny rocky island in the Kanman Strait. Genryujima, far enough for privacy, flat enough for a fair fight, dramatic enough for the gods to pull up a chair and watch. You hear the details with the calm you've held for years, while others pace nervously, sharpen their blades, and write tearful farewell letters. You barely shrug. You accept the challenge, but you prepare, just not the way your enemy expects. You don't spend nights polishing armor. You don't compose elaborate funeral poems or fret over ceremonial clothes. You don't even bother cutting your hair anymore, looking wild as hell like you've been showing off lately. Instead, how about you train that brain of yours, study Kojiro like a hunter stalking deadly prey, learn his timing, his moves, his habits, fast, precise, deadly at mid-range. Good, because you've decided not to fight Kojiro on his terms. That would be suicide. You're gonna change things up, change the rules. You ask for a small boat to take you to the island on duel day. You carve a wooden sword, a bakken, from plain old wood, the whole trip. You hold a simple wooden plank, almost as long as Kojiro's absurdly long blade. No polished steel, no shiny armor, just rough wood and a sharp intention. Because you get something most warriors never do. Winning isn't about the best weapon, it's about the best brain. Riding toward the island, wind whipping through your hair, salt stinging your skin. You feel it, the calm before the storm, the swirling tension of two giants about to collide, that quiet, electric certainty that today's fight will echo through history, and you just smirk a little because you're not here to survive. You're here to win. The boat hits shore. Ganryujima. You step out, clutching your homemade wooden sword, rough, unpolished, still smelling faintly of river water and stubbornness. Across the beach, you see him, Sasaki, Kojiro. He's been waiting, tall, skinny, calm, dressed in a fancy cloak, wielding his famous Manahoshi-zao, basically a giant clothes-drying pole. A sword so long it looks more like a ship's mast than a weapon. He's polite, prepared, and flawless. And you look like you stumbled onto the beach after one hell of a night at the tavern. The crowd, servants, witnesses, curious fishermen all whisper as they see you. Some giggle, some shake their heads. He's late. How rude. You're holding a stick. Kojiro's lips curl into a sneer. He's pissed off, losing his cool. Good. That's exactly what you wanted. You're not late out of arrogance. You're late to mess with his rhythm, even before blades clash, because you know a duel isn't decided just when swords meet. It's won when your opponent loses his mind. Kojiro, unable to control himself, draws his massive sword with a smooth, graceful motion. They say his strikes could slice the wings off a bird in flight, fast, precise, and insanely dangerous. But as he moves, something happens, something subtle but crucial. He hesitates for a split second, overwhelmed by your ragged appearance, your audacity, the absurd sight of a calm man advancing with a wooden stick, and that's all you need. You rush forward, faster than a hawk diving. Your wooden sword whistles through the salty air. One perfect strike. The crack of wood on skull echoes across the island. Kojiro collapses. Instantly. Finally. Sasaki Kojiro, mighty master swordsman, bird-slicing legend, undefeated myth, lies flat on the sand. Silence falls. Jaws drop. Fishermen pause mid-bite on their rice balls. Even the seagulls look, stunned for a moment. And you lower your sword, breathe steady, heart calm. Another duel, another win. But something in the air feels different, heavier, because today, you didn't just beat a swordsman, you ended an era, and deep down, you know victory will never taste the same again. Ganryujima lies silent after the clash. Lazy waves lap the blood-stained sand. Wind whispers through the grass like it's scared to mess up what just happened. You stand over Sasaki Kojiro's fallen body, the crude wooden sword still heavy in your hand. complete, undeniable victory, but as the adrenaline fades, something colder seeps into your bones. You look around. The witnesses, samurai, retainers, even the fishermen, all stare at you like they're seeing a ghost, not a man. No cheers, no victorious shouts. Just something colder seeps into your bones. You look around. Witnesses, samurai attendants, even fishermen, all stare at you like they've seen a ghost, not the man. No victorious cheers, no celebrations, just silence. A heavy, unsettling silence clings to your skin tighter than sweat. Because today isn't just any ordinary duel. The guy you just beat isn't some local champ or smug heir. It's him, Sasaki Kojiro, Sword Saint, the only man they thought could match him. And now, he's curled up there like a busted fan. You realize something in that moment, something you only truly get now. At a certain height, there are no more rivals, no equals, just a towering peak above the clouds. And you're standing there, all alone. You turn away without a second thought and walk off, leaving the corpse, the stares, the judgment, the whispered legends that start sprouting like weeds on sand. When you board the tiny boat back to the mainland, the wooden sword clinks against the hull, looking weird and out of place, just like the feeling inside you. The boatman, an old dude with rough hands, quietly stands up, not daring to say a word. You look back at the shrinking island, a tiny patch of land where two fates clashed and only one survived. Ganryujima will forever be tied to your name. Poets will sing about it. Historians will exaggerate it. Old men will argue about it in smoky rooms you'll never visit. But you don't feel joy. Not pride, just a sense of something unchangeable. The path you're on now, isn't that of a swordsman chasing glory? It's the path of a swordsman chasing meaning, in a world where rivals grow scarce, or forms into cakes, waters sparkle, the wind carries your name across the waves. And you quietly wonder what's left to conquer when you've beaten it all. Kajiro's death lingers long after you leave Ganryujima, not as a victory, not as a trophy, but as a burden. At first, you try to shake it off. Another duel, another win, just like dozens before. But this time it's different, because Kajiro wasn't. Some thug from a backwater village. He wasn't an overconfident martial artist with pride bigger than skill. He was a true swordsman, a mirror reflecting your relentless pursuit of mastery. And you killed him, not just physically, but mentally too. You shattered a man who, if the world were kinder, might have stood beside you instead of against you. Of course, everyone celebrated. They retold the story hundreds of ways. Musashi showed up late and annoyed Kojiro. Musashi carved a sword on the way just to mock him. Musashi knocked Kojiro out before he could blink. The stories got longer, louder, and more ridiculous. Next month, someone will probably claim you rode a giant fish to the island and fought a tree trunk. You listen to these tales. You even smile at some of them. But deep down, none of it feels like victory. It feels like a door slamming shut that you'll never open again. When Kojiro left, the world seemed smaller, duller, emptier, because now you know fewer and fewer people can face your blade with true understanding. Fewer can dance with you on the edge of death. Seeing the same beautiful and terrifying truth, you didn't just beat Kojiro, you outlived him. And somehow, that feels like an even heavier burden. Late at night, sitting alone by the campfire, you find yourself replaying the fight in your mind, not with regret, not guilt, but with deep respect. Kojiro was your greatest challenge, and now he's a ghost walking beside you for the rest of your days. You stare into the flames. The road ahead stretches longer, lonelier, quieter, and somewhere inside you understand. The more wins you rack up, the more loneliness you have to bear. It's not the jewelry that will undo you. It's the emptiness they leave behind. After Ganryujima, the world hailed you as unstoppable, the swordsman who disappointed Sasaki Kojiro, the wanderer who feared nothing, a legend walking among humans. And despite all the admiration, the whispers still follow your footsteps like dust. You feel nothing. Victory once burned in your chest. The flame fueled by the thrill of survival, the hunger for mastery. Now it fades. Hollow, you wander through villages. Again, after Ganryujima, the world hailed him as unstoppable, the swordsman who humiliated Sasaki Kojiro, the lone wolf who feared nothing, a legend walking among mortals. And despite all the admiration, the whispers still follow your footsteps like dust. You feel nothing, the victory that once burned in your chest, a flame fueled by the thrill of survival, the thirst to dominate. Now it's fading, meaningless. You wander through villages where kids pretend to be you, swinging sticks and yelling your name. At inns, drunkards raise their glasses to toast you, spinning tales so wild even you don't recognize yourself in them. Musashi fought 10-minute once without spilling a single drop of tea. He could slice a falling leaf from 20 paces. He once took down an entire dojo just by glaring at them. You smile politely at these tales, nod, bow, sip their rice wine, but inside, you're basically chewing on ashes because you know the truth they don't. Jewelry was never about fame, never about building legends. They chased something endlessly, painfully, beautifully perfect, something whole. And now that chase feels pointless. You once dreamed of worthy rivals. Now you dream of quiet rivers, empty roads, wind rustling the pines, because there's no one left to chase. The world feels tiny and fragile now. You watch other warriors polish their armor, chase glory, court the favor of courts. You feel like a lone wolf among lapdogs. You don't belong in the court or the castle. You're not fit to sit on the throne or under the banner. You belong everywhere and nowhere. You realize winning is a strange kind of death. The death of striving. The death of hunger. You've won too much, and the price you pay is loneliness, deep, endless loneliness no drink, no song, no cheering crowd can fill. So you keep walking, not toward glory, not toward battle, but toward something quieter, something you almost hear at the edge of the wind. a whisper of a different mastery not over others, but over yourself. The path goes on, but your steps slow down, not from age. Your body's still sharp, reflexes faster than a striking snake. No, it's something deeper, something tugging at your soul, whispering that the battles you need to fight now are gone. They're inside. You start to withdraw from the endless duels of life, not because you fear losing, but because winning no longer feeds you. You've slain giants, you've conquered masters, and in doing so, you realize your only real enemy left is yourself. Now you spend more time alone, days, weeks, even months wandering mountains and forests solo. No crowds, no challenges, just whispering bamboo, rushing rivers, endless open skies. The sword's still by your side, but you draw it less and less. Instead, you splash ink on paper, crafting calligraphy as fluid as water. You carve wood, shaping figures not for killing, but for creating. The same discipline that honed your edge now sharpens your spirit. You dive deeper into Zen, not in smoky temples, but through your own wild experience, meditating under waterfalls, fasting until your body feels lighter than air, sitting in complete silence, time stretching by the second. You start to get it. Mastery isn't domination. It's harmony, balance, knowing when to strike and when not to. You realize the perfect jewel isn't the one that crushes your opponent. It's the one you never have to fight. Conflict, see, is just a wave. True mastery is knowing when to step aside before it crashes down. The wild wolf who tore through Japan's best swordsman still lives inside you, but now he sits down, calm at the core of your being, not caged, not broken, not tamed, not by fear, but by wisdom. Of course, people still come to you, hot-headed youths eager to test themselves, old masters craving one last taste of glory. Sometimes you fight them. Sometimes you send them away with a word, a glance, and in both cases, you win, because sometimes you have to fight them. Sometimes you scare them off with just a word, a glance. Either way, you win, because the hardest battle for your soul is the one you eventually start. Winning eventually. Even the open road gets too crowded, even the mountains too noisy. You need somewhere quieter, a place where distractions, fame, memories, even ambition can't find you. So you retreat to a cave, not some grand temple, not a hilltop castle, a simple, cold, damp cave carved deep into a lonely mountainside. Its name is, but it's still sheathed, gathering dust as days turn into months. Inside these stone walls, you're no longer Musashi the warrior. You are Musashi, the student, a student of silence, a student of death, a student of life itself. The cave teaches you things your sword never could. It teaches you patience, like how drops of water can wear down the hardest rock. It teaches you humility, when even the lazy spiders spinning webs on your sleeping mat seem wiser than all the human babble about ambition. And most importantly, it teaches you perspective. For the first time, you really witness duels, victories, shattered schools, and humble warlords. They're just shadows on the wall. The real battle never happens to them. It's always inside you. You write fervently in the dim light, crafting essays on strategy, philosophy, mind, and the void that ties it all together. Every word a fight against ignorance, every sentence a rebellion against ego. Now your brush becomes your sword, sharp, careful, merciless against lies. In the silence of Riando, you finally hear the faint music that's always been beneath the clang of steel, the song of mastery, balance, and understanding. Sometimes people come looking for you, curious students, challengers, pilgrims hoping to catch a glimpse of legend. Some are nice, some will speak harsh truths you don't want to hear, but mostly you'll be alone, and you accept that, because now you know real power. It's not about beating others. Real power is mastering the only thing that truly matters, yourself. And deep beneath the rock and silence, you're seizing the most precious gem of your life, breathing in every moment, inside the cold embrace of Riando Cave, with the wind sighing at the entrance like an old friend. You decide it's time to pass on what you've learned, not through another duel, not through another fight, but through words. You sit cross-legged on the bare stone, brush and ink ready, and start writing. The Book of 5 Rings, not a diary, not a brag sheet about your victories, a guide, a sword manual. Sure, but more than that. A map of the mind, a blueprint to master conflict and master life. You divide your teachings into 5 scrolls, each representing an element: earth, water, fire, wind, void. Each scroll builds on the last a layered strategy for anyone who really wants to learn. The Book of Earth, foundation, stability, knowing your ground, whether in battle or life. The Book of Water, adaptability, flexibility, flowing through obstacles, overcoming challenges rather than smashing through them. The Book of Fire, aggression, timing, knowing when to strike and when to unleash power without hesitation. The Book of Wind, perspective, understanding others' strengths and weaknesses, not to copy them, but to better understand yourself. And finally, the Book of Void, the most mysterious of all, the space between thought and action, the pure awareness where true mastery lives. You write plainly. No fancy words needed. Truth doesn't need decoration. Every stroke honed like a blade on the anvil, direct, sharp, forged in the real heat of battle and hardened intellect. You don't write to get famous. You don't write to impress scholars. You write because the path you walked showed you something. Not to understand them, but to understand yourself better. And finally, the Void Book, the most mysterious of all, the space between thought and action, the pure awareness where true mastery exists. You write plainly. No fancy talk needed. Truth doesn't need dressing up. Each line is honed like a blade on an anvil, direct, sharp, forged in the fire of real battle, a tough mind. You don't write to get famous. You don't write to impress scholars. You write because the path you've walked showed you something precious, and it'd be a crime to let it die with you. Each stroke breathes life into a Second self, a Musashi that will outlive your bones crumbling to dust. You know, most people will misunderstand that. Some just skim the surface. A few can grasp its depth. But that's enough because mastery is never for the masses. This is the narrow path few are willing to endure, to suffer, to sharpen themselves to fight the world until they become a sword in human form. And when you put the last stroke on the final scroll, you lay down your brush and smile. Your greatest gem is gone. Your legacy is written. Seasons change outside your cave. Leaves fall, rivers freeze, flowers bloom, and you feel it deep in your bones. The apocalypse is near. Not some enemy suddenly defeated, not some sneak attack you can parry. No, this is the rival no sword can beat death. You greet it like every opponent, with calm, respect, no fear. Your body, once skinny and unbreakable, now moves slower. Hands that once carved legends from thin air now tremble slightly when lifting the brush. Miles you walked without thinking now weigh heavy on your legs, but your mind sharper than ever. You don't clutch life like a miser hoarding coins. You don't rage at the fading light. Instead, you prepare like a true warrior, deliberate and honorable. You craft your death like your jewelry, with precision, dignity, and full awareness. You wear your finest clothes, not a lord's robe, but simple, clean garb, fit for a man who has nothing left to prove. You sit cross-legged, sword beside you, one hand on your katana, the other on your wakizashi, not for battle, but in tribute, two swords that served you through thousands of battles. Now witness your final breath. Your pupils, the few you trust, silently gather outside the cave. They watch not with sadness, but reverence, because they get it. This isn't the death of failure. This is the death of mastery. You close your eyes, breathe the mountain air cool, fresh, alive. Feel the earth's pulse beneath you. Blood slows in your veins. No fear, no regrets, just acceptance, just peace. One final movement, still as stone. You leave this world, a warrior to the end. No drama, no desperate clinging to life. Just silence, just strength. Miyamoto Musashi died as he lived unbeaten, unyielded, unconquered, and as your soul drifts past the veil, far away, thousands of cherry blossoms flutter in the wind, and the sword falls silent. Long after your body melts into the quiet earth, your name refuses to die. It clings to mountains. It rides the rivers. It echoes in the halls of warriors and scholars. Miyamoto Musashi, the man who lived by no rules, who forged his path with sword and mind, who turned battles into art and solitude into a kingdom. They tell your story in ways both grand and strange. Some say you fought 100 men alone. Some say you could kill a flying bird with a single throw of a wooden sword. Others say you were half demon, born not of woman, but of the storm itself. The guy who once slept under trees, armed only with his sword, and stubbornness now lives forever, in ink and legend on scrolls, paintings, novels, plays. Your book of 5 rings becomes a treasure, not just for swordsmen, but generals, entrepreneurs, philosophers, anyone wanting to master conflict, skill, or even themselves. In a world that changes with the seasons, your teachings remain true. See clearly, move decisively, adapt like water, strike immediately. Know yourself. You become more than a warrior. You become an ideal. Oh, symbol of the eternal struggle between discipline and instinct. A reminder that true mastery isn't about beating. Sleep under a tree with only a sword, and stubbornness will now live forever in ink and legend on scrolls, paintings, novels, plays. Your Book of 5 Rings will become a treasure not just for swordsmen, but for generals, entrepreneurs, philosophers, anyone wanting to master conflict, skill, or even themselves. In a world that changes with every season, your teachings remain true. See clearly, move decisively, adapt like water, strike fast, know yourself. You become more than a warrior. You become an ideal, both symbol of the eternal struggle between discipline and instinct. A reminder that true mastery isn't about beating, not just the worlds, but mastering the storm inside. People built statues to honor him, swords named after you, video games, comics, movies. Your spirit finds new forms you never even dreamed of, popping up on screens and pages, but none of that tells the whole truth, because Musashi wasn't really the guy with 2 swords standing victorious over a fallen enemy. Musashi was actually the cave-dwelling man, brush in hand, writing words for a future he'd never see. The man understood that strength without wisdom is just pointless. Life without reflection is like a blade without an edge. You're not just about winning. You're not just about battles. You're a path, a question, a mirror for anyone brave enough to walk alone. And as centuries roll by, kingdoms rise and fall. There's one thing that stays. Your story still whispers to those gutsy enough to listen. Walk the path, face yourself, get better, and somewhere deep in the silence between heartbeats, Musashi's spirit is smiling, if anyone asks, hundreds of years after you're gone. What's Musashi's biggest lesson? They might expect tales of sword fighting, techniques, and masterful dueling skills, and they wouldn't be wrong, but also not quite right, because your greatest lesson isn't how to win a fight. It's how to live and die without fear. You taught that mastery isn't just beating others. It's defeating the weakness inside you, the fear of failure, the hunger for approval, the desperate need to cling to comfort and certainty. You proved that to walk the right path. You have to be ready to walk alone, no titles, no applause, not even a promise of success. You must be your own master, your own rival, your own fire in the dark, through battles, solitude, simplicity, and the strength of life. You taught this unshakable truth. Power without purpose is empty. Skill without spirit is meaningless. Victory without honor is just ashes. Duels were never the point. Blood has been spilled, reputations shattered. They're just echoes of a deeper struggle. The real enemy is always inside. Doubts, fears, illusions. and you conquered them not with brute force, but with clarity, patience, and relentless, merciless honesty. Your Book of Five Rings isn't a manual on how to kill, it's a guide to living strategically, wisely, and courageously, even today. When a young warrior tightens his gloves, or a weary soul faces a crossroads, or a quiet mind seeks meaning in a noisy world, your spirit is still there, not shouting, not bragging, just quietly standing by the roadside, nodding once like to say, "You've got everything you need. Now go on. Your life was a battle, your death a meditation, and your legacy a call, a challenge." Stretching across centuries to anyone brave enough to listen, be like Musashi, not because he never lost, not whose legacy stretches across centuries for anyone brave enough to listen. Be like Musashi, not because he never lost, not because he never felt fear, but because he chose to master himself every single day, and in the end, that's the greatest victory of all.